And good morning again. Back to daily inputs now that I have internet connection normally. Um, but my memory board is totally out of date. I really have to catch up again. So, Mummy, tomorrow, emergency tidying and particularly of myself and minor issues like that. So, in order to completely cheat on the daily, here's Evan for the whole program. See you tomorrow.
My name's Evan. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I met Nick in the winter of 2015. Calgary is a landlocked city in the middle of the prairies, so it's really not the sailing capital of the world. So when I decided that I wanted to learn to sail and maybe do an ocean crossing, I could either go out to Vancouver or Victoria and freeze to death in the middle of the winter, or I could go to the Caribbean. So I chose to go to the sunny Caribbean, and I did my competent crew course. I still didn't know anything at all. I was wandering around trying to find a boat that might want to take me somewhere, and I didn't know anything about trade winds or sailing routes because everybody just got to the Caribbean at that point. Nobody was trying to go anywhere. And enter the king of off-season deliveries, Skipper Nick, right? So Nick and I start talking. The boat's a new build catamaran that's come from France, and it's going up to Annapolis. The autopilot broke partway across their crossing, and they're also dropping off a crew member in Tortola, so that's why they needed another crew member. Nick asked me about some of my experience, which was basically nothing. And then when he was done with his questions, I said, "Hey, if you don't mind, I'd also like to ask you a couple questions if it's okay." And he said, "Evan, I'd be offended if you didn't ask me any questions." And so I kind of knew from there, okay, this is a real guy. It's going to be okay. I asked him about his experience and he had plenty. And, by the end of the conversation, I knew I was in good hands. And so I hopped on a plane and I flew to Tortola. So I have this chaotic overnight arrival. I find the boat in the middle of the night and we, settle in. And then in the morning, we're off like a rocket. Sun comes up, we're out, and we're going to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands to do some provisioning and to pick up another crew member. And so we're coming in, and it was just Nick and I on the boat at this point. The other crew member that we had with us was already on St. Thomas. We're coming into customs, and I just had like a regular T-shirt on. And Nick said, "Evan, go put a nicer shirt on. We're coming into customs. Pretty relaxed on the boat, but we're going into the serious bit, so you need to look a bit better." I'm like, okay, okay. So I get my shirt on and I'm ready to go in. And Nick's a bit nervous. We go in and we go to the customs officer and he's got the American swag on, right? And he's being, America, right? So Nick tries to goes up and gives him all his paperwork, and the guy says, "Oh, your visa is going to expire soon and you need to look at this, and where's the paperwork for the boat?" And he's really giving him the gears, and it feels like it's taking a long time, and Nick's giving him all the stuff and everything's going okay, but he's giving him the gruff, right? And so then I come up, Nick goes, everything's fine, he walks away. I come up to the desk and I put my passport down and I'm like, "Hey," and he opens it up and he's like, "Oh, Canada. He's staying longer than 6 months?" I was like, "Nope." And he just takes his stamp. He stamps it, hands it back to me. He's like, "Have a good day." And I turned around and left, walked out, and Nick was furious. He's like, "Whoa, how did they just, And yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. They gave him such a hard time, and then they're just like, "Oh, Canada, welcome in, eh?" So once we're all cleared in and we've got all our crew members, we go to do some provisioning. And we're going around the supermarket, and Nick pulls out a tub of peanut butter, and he's like, "Do you guys want peanut butter? Because I have a thing about peanut butter. This is my peanut butter." He's like, "I'll get you all the peanut butter you want, but this is my peanut butter. Don't eat my peanut butter." And I'm like, "Okay, got it. Don't eat Nick's peanut butter," right? So anyway, we get all sorted, we get all our stuff, and we head out. We're heading towards Florida. Now, I'd never been offshore before, and I was really lucky that Nick was the first captain that I sailed with. Um, because he was a fantastic teacher, especially for me. I really understood his rules, safety first. And, I just kind of knew that he was thinking of the things that, would put my life at risk or might be sketchy or something like that. And, through the conversations that we had, I realized that like these were the things he was thinking about and planning for and making sure that these things didn't happen. And so as long as I just did what he said, I'd be safe, I'd be good, and that gave me a lot of confidence to just trust what he was saying and trust learn about actual sailing and not just worry about, oh, this is my first time on a boat in the ocean. Um, in the grand scheme of life, we didn't really spend that much time together, but his impact on my life has been significant. And one of the moments that really solidifies it for me, when we were heading south, not long after leaving St. Thomas, we ran into a little bit of weather. I'm just loving it. We're flying, we're moving, and one of the crew members was getting seasick. And so Nick and the other crew member were inside the boat helping her out. And Nick just turned to me and he said, "You're on the helm, do the best you can." And, so I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. And I'm standing there at the helm. It's raining sideways, the wind's blowing, things are pretty crazy. So I'm doing my best on the helm, and at one point Nick sticks his head out and he says, "How you doing out here?" And I'm smiling from ear to ear. I can hardly control it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's going okay. I'm doing good. I'm doing good." And he turned to me and he said, "Evan, we'll make a sailor out of you yet." And then he just turned around and left. And that's one of those moments that for me like has just had such a huge impact, because I thought like, wow, if this real sailor like thinks that I even have a shot, it was really powerful for me, and it stuck with me. And that's one of those moments that I think is significant. A little bit later on in the trip, when we were a bit further north, coming up to the east coast of the US, we had decided to stay offshore a little bit longer instead of going into the intercoastal waterway down at the bottom of Florida. And we were pushing up, and we eventually found ourselves caught in a storm that started pushing us back the other way. We eventually turned around and went south to run with the storm. We were going upwind for a while. I think it was 2 or 3 days trying to make our way up into it. And then once we finally decided we had our engines at full, we were trying to go up into it, but we were making negative headway. We were getting pushed backwards. And so we finally decided, let's turn around, we'll go down and we'll come in lower in Florida. And we did. We turned around, and I think it took us 2 or 3 days to go up that way. And then in a matter of hours, like less than a day, we had made the same ground going south. So as we're coming into Florida and things are calming down a little bit, Nick pulls me aside at one point. And he's like, "So I'm pretty sure you got the memo when I said, don't eat my peanut butter. So like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't you. But somebody ate my peanut butter." And I was like, no way. Like that could not have been more clear. That's like the first thing you laid down when we were in the supermarket. Don't eat my peanut butter. And so he was pretty sure he knew which of the crew members it was. There was a bit of a language barrier. And so, we thought the best and thought it was probably just a miscommunication, but he was pissed. One more story for you. Nick and I crossed paths a couple years after that in Tortola again. I had come across on another delivery, and Nick had actually sailed there in his own boat. And so he took us out to one of the nearby islands, and we had a fire and, hung out, and we spent a few days hanging out, and it was fun. And one night we go out and we hit it pretty hard. We're getting into the drink and we're going, and we're cruising along and everything's good. And then we go past the public dock where Nick has left his tender, and his tender's not there. And he thinks the tender's stolen, and we're like, oh no, like this is pretty bad. And he's worried about his boat because he's not sure if the holding is great and if his anchor is gonna drag. And so he decides, I'm gonna swim. And like it's there are waves. It's not an ideal swimming situation, and we're all hammered. And so we're like, okay, and we're like, well, I don't know if this is a good idea. He decides, no, like I'm not gonna sail all this way across the world and then have my boat end up on the rocks because I can't get out there in the middle of the night. And it's like, okay, fair enough. And so we split up into parties. There was another skipper there with us, Shane, who said, okay, well, I'll swim out with you because somebody's got to go as well. And then some of us decided, all right, well, we got to have a shore party as well, because if it goes sideways and we can't see you anymore, we need to be able to call for help. So we're kind of splitting up. And somebody had a little bit of wisdom and thought, maybe this isn't the best idea. Maybe we shouldn't do this. And so Nick acquiesced, and he's like, yeah, okay, fine. We won't do this. We'll, keep an eye on the boat for a little bit, but we'll go to bed. So he came with us back to the catamaran and slept on the catamaran. And in the morning, I wake up, I'm all bleary eyed, and he comes and grabs me, and he's like, "Hey, Evan, come here." I'm like, what's going on, Nick? And we walk around the corner, and attached to the stern of our catamaran is his dinghy. And so he never took it to the public dock, and it was never stolen. He took it to our boat, where we hung out and started to drink, and then went through the town. And then he came back and slept, and nobody noticed until the morning that his dinghy was there. So he just hops back on, zips out to his boat, and everything's fine. But that was that was a pretty fun time. And those are some of my stories about Nick, a proper sailor and a proper captain through and through. A man who I have a lot of respect for, and who has positively impacted a lot of lives, and had a significant impact on mine.